means forever, ever, hold on, never mind. Oh.
This is the story of Barehead Fred, also known as Frederick Baxter. How is it that a child or a young adult are bullied for what they want to be or for what they like? Frederick Baxter was a young adult by the age of 16. He lived in a house that was isolated. The nearest neighbors that they had were about 3.5 miles away. Fred and his family lived near the woods, so there would sometimes be some deer in the backyard. Fred loved his big brother William. He would be the only one to protect and defend Fred from the family. Fred's family would constantly bully him for being different. Fred loved creepy stuff, so when he heard of creepypasta and started playing all the Five Nights at Freddy games, he liked drawing and doing crossovers between both of them. Fred's older sister Angela would usually grab his drawings, either to show them to the family or to rip them apart. Fred's mother would be full of anger with every time she would see anything devilish or dark that Fred would draw. Fred's father was a man who didn't hear an excuse. The only thing he would do was beat his child. Usually it was always Fred. Fred's whole family was heavily religious, and seeing what Fred would draw or create gave them all disgust and would send him straight to confession. Fred had gone to confession so many times to the point where the family made a confession booth in their closet, where they would lock Fred in for hours, even days. His big brother was in the army, so sometimes he wouldn't be there to protect Fred. His brother liked Fred's work. He would always support Fred in any way. Fred felt safe with William. He loved knowing someone would be there for him, but nothing lasts forever. William was sent to Iran to fight in the war, but before he left, he gave Fred an army blade to keep safe. Fred would have to wait 2 months until William got back. The day came and Fred waited at the door like a puppy dog, waiting for his owner to come back. He heard a car pull up at the house. He got up and went to the window. He was expecting William to come to the door in an army uniform, carrying some bags, but instead of his brother, he saw a man in an army-style suit walk up to the door. The man knocked on the door, and Fred went to open it. The man said, "Is Mr. and Mrs. Baxter here?" Fred replied with a no. The man asked, "Are you Freddy?" Fred was shocked. His brother was the only person who called him Freddy. Fred nodded, and the man gave him a box and said while leaving, he was a good friend. Once the man left, Fred opened the box and saw that it had letters from William. Fred searched through the box and saw pictures of him and William. Then he saw some medals. A yellow envelope stood out the most. It was directed to the parents, but Fred opened it. It was a paper explaining that William was killed in action. Fred stopped and fainted. Once the news got around, the funeral was placed on a weekend. When the weekend came, to Fred everything went slow. At the funeral, it was such a sad and rainy day. Everyone cried, gave their respects. The tombstone was beautiful. It read, William Baxter, fellow good soldier, friend, son, and brother. Fred couldn't believe it. He had lost everything. As everyone was heading towards the Baxter house, Fred was remembering everything that he and William did together, and how William would help him out. Fred starts to think of what would happen to him after this. At the house, everyone was there, eating, saying sorry, gossiping, and bullying Fred. Fred went upstairs to his room. In his room, he cried, screamed, and fell to the floor. As he laid on the floor, he saw William's army knife. Fred grabbed it and took out the knife from the holder. He saw the initials WB. Fred turned it to the other side and saw FB. It was his initials. William was going to give it to Fred one day. Fred cried for a while, but then he lost it. He started to chuckle and made it up to a psychotic laugh. He used the knife to rip up his suit that he wore. Then he grabbed a shirt, a striped hoodie, and gloves. He found an old mask from his closet. It was a furry brown scary mask of a bear. He jumped from his window into a tree behind him. He went to every car and slashed the tires to make sure no one could leave. He went to the garage and grabbed some wooden nails. Fred blocked every door and went back into the house through his window. Soaking wet from the rain, he stayed in his room until it got darker outside. He made his way downstairs wearing the mask and holding the knife. Once he was downstairs, everyone looked at him as if he wanted to get locked again in the closet. His father and uncle grabbed him and threw him in the closet. As everyone laughed and called him names, Fred was getting locked in the closet. They all left him there for a while. Then Fred used the knife and stabbed the closet door multiple times. Finally, he broke out and attacked his father. Once he was done with his father, he went towards everyone else in the room. Some people tried to open the doors. They were the easiest to catch for Fred. Fred killed and hunted every family member. Father, uncles, aunts, and all of his 5 cousins. The last people he had to hunt down was his mother and sister. They locked themselves in Fred's room. Fred pounded on his door until he had enough. He grabbed his knife and stabbed the door until he could make a hole. His arm went through the hole to unlock the door. When Fred entered, he saw his window open. He went to the window and saw his mother and sister running into the woods. Fred's mother couldn't keep running. She got too tired as well as being overwhelmed by every family member's death. Angela kept running while her mom and got on her knees. She started to pray and ask God for forgiveness. Fred stood behind her. His mother looks at the sky and calls out to God. Fred slits her throat and starts to hunt his last prey.